Rachel Zegler's story is kind of wild, right? It feels like one minute she was a high school student and the next she was Hollywood's next big thing. But according to a recent analysis, her career is now at a serious tipping point. So today, we're going to break down the huge Hollywood gamble she's apparently being forced to take. Let's get into it. Okay, so to really understand what's at stake here, you have to start with this quote from the analysis. I mean, wow, it's pretty blunt. Not hireable in Hollywood. It's a really shocking claim that pretty much frames this entire story we're about to unpack. A story about public image, high-stakes career moves, and a future that might just be on the brink. So you're probably asking, how on earth did we get here? Well, the analysis traces it all back to her huge role in Disney's upcoming Snow White movie. It argues that the promotional tour for that film, combined with how her other movies performed, basically created a perfect storm. And this timeline just shows you how incredibly fast things can change. Zegler starts out as this celebrated rising star, cast as a Disney princess. But then some of the comments she made during the Snow White press tour started to stir up some major online controversy. That was followed up by a different film that really didn't do well at the box office. And all of that leads us to right now, where she's starting work on a much, much smaller indie film, a project that the source sees as a total make-or-break moment. Now, this new indie film, it's not just another job. The analysis we're looking at presents this as a very deliberate, very strategic pivot. I mean, it's her first project since all that controversy, so it's being framed as this really intentional effort to completely change the narrative around her career. The project is a comedy drama called She Gets It From Me. It's all about family and adoption, and as you can probably tell, it is a world away from the blockbuster fantasy of Disney princesses. And this slide really illustrates the strategy perfectly. She's starring alongside super respected comedic and dramatic actors like Ed Helms and Marissa Tomei, and it's a character-driven story. So the move is seen as a complete rebrand and a recalibration. The goal here, it seems, is to shift her image away from those massive budget franchises and get back to more grounded, performance-focused work. And here's a really crucial piece of the puzzle. Zegler was actually attached to this movie before all the Snow White stuff happened. Back then, for a little indie film, getting a future Disney princess on board was a huge win. The fact that this same project apparently then struggled to get money in a distribution deal, well, it just shows how much her perceived value in Hollywood might have changed. And this brings us to the biggest business challenge that's highlighted in the source material. You see, it's not just about making a good movie, it's about getting people to actually see it. And for this project, that has become a huge, huge hurdle. So what is the single biggest issue facing this film right now, according to this analysis? What's the thing that turns it from just a standard independent movie into this high-wire act for Zegler's career? Here it is. The film is starting production without any kind of distribution deal. That means no studio, no streaming service has committed to marketing it or putting it in theaters. They're basically making the movie first and just hoping someone will buy it later on. And just in case you're not familiar, the distributor is the company that gets a finished film to an audience. They handle all the marketing, they get it into theaters, they put it on streaming. Without one, even a brilliant movie can end up totally unseen. And that is the massive gamble they are taking here. This chart really puts the situation into perspective. Money isn't coming from a major studio like Disney. It's being handled by smaller, independent companies. Now, they're respectable for sure, but they operate on a totally different scale, which just goes to show how far outside the traditional Hollywood system this project really is. Okay, so all of this is building to our final section, what this one single small film could mean for Rachel Zegler's future. The analysis positions this as a genuine turning point, with two very different ways this could all play out. First, let's just talk about the scale here. The film's budget is reportedly around $5 million. Now, the source calls this teeny tiny, and yeah, compared to the massive budgets of films like Snow White, it is. It's a much smaller stage, but for Zegler personally, the stakes have never been higher. So what happens when the film is actually finished? The analysis lays out two paths. The best-case scenario? The movie is a huge hit, it generates a ton of buzz, and gets snapped up by a major player like Netflix. That would put Zegler right back in the spotlight. But the source argues the more likely outcome is a deal with a free service like Tubi or Roku, a much less prestigious release that might not move the needle on her career at all. And that is the bottom line. The analysis frames this in really stark terms. This little indie film isn't just another role. It's her one big shot to reset the narrative, to prove her value outside of the big studio system, and to start that long road to a career comeback. Which leaves us with this final question. In an industry that is so obsessed with massive blockbusters, can one small indie film really be enough to reboot a career that is, according to this analysis, hanging in the balance? That right there is the Hollywood gamble Rachel Zegler's taking right now.